Hello everybody, welcome back to another Blender Made Easy tutorial. Today we're going to be looking at fluid particles and we're going to be creating this cool slide that you see on screen right now. So basically in this tutorial we're going to be talking about the fluid particles. I'm going to be demonstrating some of the settings and then we're going to be modeling the slide and then we're going to add in the circle and have it go around the slide and go into a box at the end. So let's get started with this. First off, I'm going to just demonstrate the particles. So we're going to delete this cube, press Shift A, we're going to add in a mesh and a plane. We'll scale up that plane and then we'll press Shift A, we're going to add in another plane and I'll drag it up right about there and scale it down. So I'm going to be demonstrating some of the features. So we're going to go over to the particle system and click new right there. So right click on your other plane, go over to the physics and add a collision object. I want to make sure you do that because I want the particles to interact with this plane. Now press Shift A, we're going to add in a ecosphere, then change the subdivisions down to 1, and then drag it over here and drag it up right about there. Now right click on your plane again, go over to the particle system, scroll down to the render settings, click object, and set the object to this ecosphere that we just added. So it's this one right here. Now if we press Alt A, we can see they drop down and nothing really happens. So we need to go over to the physics and click on fluid. And then we also need to right click on our plane, go over to the physics tab, and then just turn up the dampening. The dampening will stop the particles from bouncing. The particle friction will stop them from sliding around. That's really important because I don't want them to fly everywhere. Now right click on your plane again. And now if we press Alt A, we can see they kind of stop right there, just like that. So that's pretty cool. But I want to turn up these settings a little bit so I can have more time to demonstrate. So I'm going to set the end frame to 50 and I'm going to set the lifetime to 250 so it goes over the entire animation. I'm also going to turn up the number of particles to 5,000. Now if we press Alt A, we can see them just like that and they kind of go over there. There we go. That's pretty cool. So let's talk about these settings. We have the size and the random size. If you know how to use a particle system, that's pretty easy. If we turn up the random size, some of them will become smaller, some bigger. We turn up the regular size, all of them will become bigger. The mass right here, this is just like the mass of the object. We have brownie and drag and all that. The subframes, this is for like more accurate simulations. If you have moving objects, sometimes you might need to turn up the subframes because it will make it like disappear on some frames. So that's a good option if you have really fast moving objects. But we don't really need to worry about that. We're going to come down here and talk about these options. We have double density and classic. These are just simple. You can see that it gets rid of some of the settings if you go in classic and then it gives them back once you go in double density. It's pretty easy. Then we have the stiffness, viscosity. I think that is how you pronounce it.
Viscosity.
Yes, I was right. And then we have the buoyancy. The stiffness, this is how close the particles will be to each other. So let's just play this and then I'll turn up the stiffness right about, if I turn it up higher, you can see they're kind of flying everywhere and it's pushing them out. If I go really low, we can see that they're just interacting, they're all together and there's no like structure to them. So that is the stiffness. I like a value of 0.5. I found that's pretty good. And we can see it pushes them out. Oh gosh. Yeah, that just happened. Okay, now the buoyancy, actually the viscosity. Let's talk about that real quick. This is just the thickness of the fluid itself. So if you want thicker fluid, you turn that to a lower value. If you want less thick, you turn it to a higher value. So that's what that does. The buoyancy, this adds like a negative force to the particles. So if I play this and then I just turn up the buoyancy, we can see that they go like straight up. It's really weird. I don't know why you would ever use that. I guess in some cases it would be kind of cool. Like you could animate it a little bit, like go up like that and drop down. Something it's kind of cool like that. So that just adds like a negative force to the particles. Now over here in the advanced section, we have a couple different options. We have the repulsion factor, we have the stiff viscosity, the interaction radius, and the rest density. Rest density, that's just the density of the fluid while it's at the rest position. The interaction radius, this is how far the fluid will interact with each other. At default, if you just check that on, it'll be 4 times the particle. So if we have one particle right here and we have like another one right here, if it's in the range of 4 times that particle, it'll interact with it. But if it's like too far, it won't interact. So that's just the default, the setting, 4 times. The stiff viscosity, this is for expanding fluid. It gives it like a thickness. I think that's how it works. That's what it said on the manual. Once the fluid's expanding, it will give it some more thickness and stickiness. The repulsion factor, this is how strongly the fluid tries to keep from clustering together. So if you turn it up, it'll really try to keep from clustering. If you turn it down, it's not going to do that much. I've found a lot of these settings don't really help or interact with your fluid simulation that much, just very minor differences. Now down here we have the springs and the rest length. The force, I just found this gives it like a bounciness, so if I turn it up a little bit and I drop down, you can see they're bouncing just a little bit like that, and they're kind of just going out. That's what I found that it does. The rest length, I couldn't really find a difference between this. We can see that it's like the factor, particle radius, spring, rest, whatever. I couldn't really find any difference. So let's turn it all the way up and play it. You can see, yeah, I guess it does give a little bit of a variation. And if I turn it all the way down, okay, so it does actually give it quite a bit of, I was using a different scene for my testing, so I guess it just works on different scenes. So that's all the way up, and that's all the way down. Cool, so that just gives it a cool effect. Now down here, don't check this on and play it because I've had Blender crash on me every single time I've tried to use this setting. I'm in the build right now and I know the build is unstable, so I switched over to 2.78 and it still crashed on me. So do not check this. It might work in different versions, I don't know. For the 2 versions that I tried, this crashed my Blender file every single time. Okay, so now let's start a new scene and we'll actually create the fluid and stuff. So let's go Control N and start up a new scene. Now for this scene, I'm going to turn on my screencast keys right there. We're going to press X, delete the cube, then press Shift A. We're going to add in right here, a cylinder. Now go into front view and 5 to go into orthographic view and rotate this till it's about 90 degrees. Then go into edit mode, press Z to go into wireframe, A to deselect, and then box select this top part here and press X, delete. Now this is what we're going to be using to model the slide. I'm not sure if there's a better way to do this. I tried using a curve to go around in a circle, but it messed with it. It turned it upside down and it wasn't what I wanted. So if you guys know a better way to like model a slide going down like that, let me know. But for now, we're just going to be modeling it manually. So scale it down, go into edit mode, and then just start extruding and rotating until you get like a cool effect, circle going down. You don't need to worry about the height right now. We'll mess with that with proportional editing in just a little bit. So extrude, rotate around, extrude, rotate around. You don't have to get it perfectly because we're also going to be adding a subdivision surface modifier to give it a more smooth look. Just for now, kind of go like this, and then you can go into finer detail by adding like a loop cut and just making it look a little bit better. Okay, so there we have this, and what we need to do now is add a bunch of vertices in these little parts and just smooth it out a little bit more. So go into wireframe, hit Control R, we'll add in 2 loop cuts right there. I'll add in a loop cut right there by hitting Control R, and then I'll drag it down by pressing G. And also if you hold the Shift key, it'll be a lot more precise. You can go a lot more softer movements. Right, holding Shift right about there. I'll add in a loop cut on this one and drag it out so it just softens up that curve. Also do the same for this one. Just right there, just doing little things like this to make the curve a little bit better. So Control R right there, Control R here, drag that out a little bit, Control R here, that one looks a little bit rough. Same thing here, and Shift, just like that, smoothing out the corners so it just looks a little bit better. One more right there I think is good. We'll add in a couple right here. One more right there. I want to make sure that the vertices are all like semi close to each other. Like here we have that length. That's like a three or two grid divisions. Here we have two grid divisions. I want to make sure that they're the same length. I know we have some over here. It doesn't really matter that much. I'll add in one more loop cut at the end here. Okay, box select this loop cut and then go O and turn on connected instead of enabled, because enabled will grab all the surrounding vertices, connected will only grab the connected vertices. So we'll do that. We'll turn it on smooth and then press G, Z, and just drag it down and use your scroll wheel. You're probably going to want something like that. Hey, there we go. I think that's good. So let's just model in a tiny bit more. I'll rotate this around so it's more of an angle. Yeah, like that. Great, so now that we have that slide, we can add in a solidify modifier to give it some thickness. So go over to the modifier section, go add modifier, and solidify. And we'll zoom in here, we'll give it a little bit more thickness. And right about there. And then make sure it's on the offset of 1, because I don't want it to go on the inside, I want it to go on the outside, because the particles are going to be interacting with the inside, and if this is set to a higher value, it's not going to work that great, so turn it up to 1. I'll go a little bit more thick. Then add in the subdivision surface right here, and that will smooth everything out. I'll turn up the view to 2, and I'll go smooth shading. I also want to add in an edge split, so go add modifier, edge split, and it looks like, is this? Did it work the way I wanted it to? Do I need to have this above? Yeah, have the edge split above the subdivision surface, and that should do it. There we go, cool. So now let's go and add in the circle and mess with the particles. Hold on a second, what is this? Why, is that because of the edge split? Do I need to have this above there? No. Subdivision surface. Okay, so have the subdivision surface at the top, and that looks like it did it. Yeah, there we go. So subdivision surface, solidify, then edge split. Okay, so then press Shift A, we're gonna add in a circle right here. Press T and change the fill type to N-gon, and then just rotate it and place it right in this spot. So we'll go into front view, press R, holding down Control, I'll snap it to 90 degrees, I'll scale it down, and then I'll place it right here. Scale it down a little bit more. Drag it up a little bit. That looks good. So now we're gonna add a ecosphere, so press Shift A, go to ecosphere, turn the subdivisions down to 1, and then drag it over here. So now we can start messing with the particle system. Right click on your plane, or your cylinder I mean, go over to the physics and add collision. I want to make sure I turn up the dampening and the factor, so turn up the dampening and turn up the factor. We can also give this a little bit of a randomness too. I think that will give it a cool effect. So those settings are probably good. Right click on your circle, go over to the particle system and click new. Now here's where we can set it up. Let's go down to the object and set it for the ecosphere that we added. So right here, and then make sure it's set to fluid. And now let's see what happens if we press Alt A. We can see that they're not sliding. It looks like we might need to turn up or turn down the friction. So we'll turn that down to maybe like a 3. And we need to turn up the lifetime as well. So let's right click on our circle and go over to the lifetime and the end frame. We'll set this to a value of, let's go 50. And the lifetime I'm gonna turn up to 300, just so we're safe, I turn it up higher. We'll see what that looks like once we press Alt A. They're flying everywhere. The size is a little bit big, so I'll turn the size down, and I'll leave the random size at 0 because I all want them to be the same size. I'll press Alt A one more time, and we'll see what that looks like. They're still going backwards, so we might need to bring up this part of the mesh. So I'll box select it, go into wireframe, deselect that part, press G and Z, and just drag it, nope, GZ, and drag it up so it's more of an angle so the particles fall down. Then we'll drag that up, and now I'll press Alt A and we'll see how that looks. There we go, that's working a little bit better, but they're still going very slow. So I will right click on this and turn the friction all the way off. And there we go, now they're flying down just like that. Cool. That might be a little bit fast, so we'll go with 0.1. Press Alt A, we'll see what that looks like. And man, it's like it's just a little bit slow. So I'll go 0.05. Alt A. All right, that's probably good. And we are running a little bit low frames. So we have to make sure that we like imagine 4 frames ahead. Okay, so now we'll do a little bit more settings in this. So go over to the particle system. The stiffness, I'm going to turn that down to 0.5 because I want them to be closer to each other. And I think we're good there. That's all I really want to do. The buoyancy, or the viscosity, whatever. That's a really weird word. I'm going to turn that down to 1. And the number of particles, I'm going to turn that up to 5,000. So we'll see what that looks like with a end frame of 70. I'm going to save that real quick. So press Control S and save it to here. I'll just go fluid particles. And I'll press Alt A. Oh gosh, hold on. We need to reset and then press Alt A. Now they're flying off that way. Why are they going that way? I don't want them to go that way. Oh gosh. Let's drag the circle this way a little bit and rotate it right there. Okay. That's a lot of particles. What we can do to make sure that they don't fall off this way is just extrude this part out way over there. And now if we play this again, is it clipping? No, we're good. If we play this again, we can see that they do not fall out that way. Cool, that looks good. So now let's start with the materials and the lighting, and then we'll render out the scene. So right click on our particle. You can set this to like any color that you want. I'm gonna go with like a mixed shader, and maybe I'll set it to a blue color. I think that might be cool. So go mixed shader for the surface, and then diffuse and glossy right here. I'm going to set the factor of this to 0.2. I'm going to turn the roughness all the way down so it gives it a really smooth look. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And then I'll set it to like a bluish color, something like that. I think that will be pretty cool. So let's play that real quick. I'll stop it right there and press Shift Z to see what it looks like. Nice. I think that looks cool. Now right click on your cylinder, go new, and you can set this to whatever you want as well. I think I'll go with a glossy shader with a roughness of 0.1. I'll see what that looks like. Nice. That might, yeah, I think that, you know what, I think that's gonna be cool. So now let's do the lighting. For this, I'm gonna be using an HDR, so go use nodes and go environment texture. I'll link in the description where you can get some free HDRs. I'm going to be using the one from the Architecture Academy, this one 004, and go open image. Now this will give us some really nice lighting and some really cool reflections on the plane as well. Awesome. Now let's add in a floor. So press Shift A, we're going to go plane. I'm going to drag it down and scale it up. And drag it down right about there. I also need to make sure that I add in something for the particles to fly into. So I'll go Shift A, we're gonna add in a cube, and I'll drag it right here, right underneath this part, and go into edit mode. I'll right click on this face, extrude, right click, scale inwards, turn off proportional editing, scale inwards right about there, and then extrude it down. Also, you wanna make sure that this has a collision object, and the dampening, the bounciness, I do not want them to fly off, so I'm gonna turn up the bounciness really high. And then the friction, I'll turn it up just a little bit, right about there. So let's play this and see where the particles land inside our cube. So this is going very slow at the moment, but we'll just see where it goes. And they fall in right there. And do they bounce out? No, they stop. That's pretty cool. I think I'll set the end frame to a value of 300. And I'll just, I think that's fine actually. So let's set up the camera and render this out. So I'll go right about here, Control Alt 0. I'll right click on this, drag it this way a little bit. I'll scale up the plane so it goes beyond the camera because I don't want to see the HDR. And I'll drag it this way maybe. Something like that I think would be cool. I'll move this out of the way. Before we render it though, we need to do a couple more things. First off, I'm going to add in a lamp. So I'm going to right click on this one. I'm going to turn it to a sun lamp, use nodes. I'm going to leave the color at white, and then I'm going to just rotate it around and place it right there. Go into side view, rotate it up, something like that. And I'll press Shift to Z to see what it looks like. That looks pretty cool actually. Awesome. Now right click on your plane and we'll give this a mix shader with a soft glossiness to it. So go mix, we'll go diffuse and glossy right here. I'll turn the factor down to 0.1 and I'll turn the roughness all the way down. We'll see what that looks like. Nice. I'll right click on our cube and I'll give this just like a, what do I want for this? Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I think that will be fine. Just a default white diffuse. Now currently there's fireflies everywhere, so we need to do a little bit of sampling stuff. The clamp indirect, I'm going to turn that up to 1. And the light paths, I'm going to turn off these two options, the caustics. I'll press Shift Z to see what that looks like now. That did help with the fireflies a little bit. There's still quite a bit of noise. So we're going to turn on denoising. And I'll turn the strength down a little bit because currently if we zoom in here, this part of the mesh, that little white spot, that's going to give us some problems with the denoising. So I'm going to turn the strength of this down to 0.2. I think that will be fine. Now let's do a render. So let's play this and I'll stop it once it starts to fall into the cube. So go right about, I'll keep going, keep going, right here or so. I'll stop it right there. And we'll give this a quick render to see what that looks like. So the sampling, I'll leave that at 120. I think for the animation, I'll turn that down a little bit. I'll click render and see what this looks like. I'll save it one more time. It should go pretty fast because I'm on my GPU. Nice. You can see the particles right there. The denoising got rid of all that noise. Nice. That looks good. Should 6 seconds remaining. We'll see what it looks like with the denoising up top there. Actually, it did it pretty good actually. There's not a lot of problems with that. So I like that setting. So I think I'm going to render this out. The resolution, I'm going to turn this to 1280 by 720 with 100% resolution. And I'll set an output right here. So create a folder on your desktop and then set it right here. So open up that folder and mine is right here. I set it to pics, click accept. And now once we render it out, all of those images will go into that folder. That's pretty important. We also want to make sure that the render samples is a little bit lower. So I'm going to go with a value of like, what do I want? Let's go 80. I think that will be fine. And the strength of the world, you know what? I think I want the strength to be a little bit higher. So I'll go with 2. We'll go back to the 3D view just to make sure that looks good. Nice. And the sun lamp, I'll turn that up a little bit as well. So right click on your lamp, go over to the sun settings, and I'll turn it up to 2. Now everything's just a little bit brighter. Great. So I think we're ready to render. So save that one more time, go over to the render settings and click animation. So this should not take too long, only 300 frames. I'm guessing like maybe 30, 40 minutes, something like that. So I'll pause the video until it's done. Okay, so halfway through the render, I noticed that my particles just kind of exploded and just went out of existence. And this is the last frame that was rendered properly, and then the next frame, just the particles disappeared. And I don't know why it did that, but what I did to fix this is I just went into the 3D view and I right-clicked on the particles and then clicked on Bake All Dynamics, and that baked in the entire scene. So now, once this goes through, it goes into the cube just fine and without exploding. So if you have problems with your particles just flying everywhere and you don't know why, that might be the way to fix it, is click on Bake All Dynamics. So I'm going to figure out which frame it was again. So I'm going to figure out the frame that it went wrong, and that is frame 22. So I'm going to have the start at 222. And so it will start at that frame and it will be proper this time without it messing up. So let's just make sure everything's good. Yeah, so that's 21. And let's go back to Blender, Yeah, that looks right. So I'm going to go back to the render settings and click on animation, and that will render it out. Okay, the render has finished, so I'm going to go over to the start and set it to 1, so it starts at 1. Then I'm going to hit the backspace key, so I'm on frame 1. Next, I'm going to go to the video sequence editor. So come down here to this menu and click on video sequence editor, go to add, image, and navigate to where your images are. Mine are right here. I have all of them, just like that. Press A to select everything and go add image strip. And there we can see it's added in. If for some reason you have it placed over here, all you have to do is press G and then move it to frame 1 right there. Next, come down here and change it to a movie file, but currently in the build, I'm on 2.78.5. There is not an MPEG format, and that's the format that I want, so I'm going to go switch over to the regular version 2.78. If you're in a new version already, if you're already in 2.79 when you're watching this video, you don't have to worry about that, but since I'm in a test build of the newest update, I have to switch over. So I'm going to save that, then switch over, and then we'll sequence it out. Alright, now that I'm in the regular version 2.78, I'm going to come down to here and change this to MPEG. The encoding, I'm going to go MP4. The codecs is going to be H.264. And then all we have to do is click animation and it will sequence it out. So we'll be able to watch it. It goes pretty fast since it's already rendered all the images, just like that. There we go, and we can see it drop down. So we'll play this one more time once it's done. Alright, so we're going to go up to render and then click on play rendered animation, and we will see exactly how this looks. So I'll place it right in the middle. And there we go. We can see the particles, they come down and then drop into the box. Nice. Alright, so there you go, guys. That is the animation. There you go. That is the fluid particles. I hope you learned something new from this tutorial. If you made something cool, I would love to see it, so make sure to tweet it to me or tag me on Instagram. One more thing before I end this tutorial is I recently came out with a new course, and it is on the fire simulation. So if you haven't heard of it yet, go check it out. Link is down in the description. I teach you all about the fire simulation and the smoke simulation, how to create and render and all that fun stuff. Link is down in the description. Go check it out. That's going to be it for this tutorial. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.